The e-ticketing system commenced on the 1st of October. Tonight with me in studio to clarify more on this is Attorney General Ayaz Said Qayyum, Rajneesh Prasad, the Chief Marketing Officer for Vodafone, Pramila Kumar, the Chief Executive for Consumer Council of Fiji, and Ajit Singh, the Executive Member of the Fiji Buses Operators Association and CEO of Tadrio Transports. Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight. Now, Attorney General, other thing a lot of people wanted to know, how did this come about?
Well, I mean, electronic payment of bus fares has been a matter has been talked about for a number of years. And as you know, the bus industry, in the way it is almost over 60 years old. And it needed to obviously modernize. And with e-ticketing, you bring about that level of modernity into the bus industry. It also brings about a lot better accountability and transparency. It improves a lot of service conditions for the ordinary consumers who use the bus services. So the idea was floated, of course, under the Bainimarama government and subsequently by the Fiji First government for a number of years. We had the laws in place for about 3-4 years after widespread consultations with the key stakeholders. We, of course, then wanted to ensure that we have a number of service providers. So initially we had Digicel and a company called Bulamai Fiji, and of course Vodafone. They were interested in providing the services to the bus companies. Government was insistent upon the fact that all the three service providers must be able to have systems that could talk to each other. We do not want a situation where just because a bus operator used, for example, Digicel services, and somebody bought a Digicel card, that card did not work on a bus operator that used Vodafone or Bulamai Fiji. So you need to have interoperability, as they say. In the same way, for example, you can take your ANZ ATM card and use it on a Westpac machine because they have an arrangement. And you obviously use the service and are able to withdraw your money too from a Westpac machine. So we gave these service providers almost 2 years to be able to have that interoperability, but they weren't able to do that. But in the meantime, of course, Digicel and Bulamai Fiji withdrew, citing various reasons for the withdrawal, including focus on other areas, citing, for example, the cost that was involved in bringing about the technology for them. And then we had Vodafone left. Of course, we then had all the laws regularized and some amendments brought about to ensure it provided a lot of responsibilities and obligations on all the various stakeholders. And then we, of course, gave a 2-month lead time, as announced in the budget, for all consumers to say, look, you have 2 months for you to be able to start buying the cards, using the cards, getting to know the cards. And then from 1st of October, it would become compulsory. So that's how e-ticketing came about, and that's how we have Vodafone as a service provider. The law, of course, allows for other entrants to come into the market. So you could have another company that may tomorrow want to come in and say, look, we want to also provide services, electronic ticketing services. They can do that as long as there's interoperability between that particular service provider and Vodafone.
Why do you think people were reluctant to go about and register? This question is posed to all of you. In getting themselves registered with the e-ticketing card, it took them some time. We're coming towards the last few days. In fact, coming towards the end of September, you would notice a number of people trying to register quickly.
I think there was this realization towards the end that e-ticketing is compulsory and it's here to stay. And if they don't register themselves, then come Monday, they won't be able to actually use the bus services. So there was this last-minute rush to get the registration done, although 2 months were given as a trial period for consumers to sign up and prepare themselves for the e-ticketing.
The registration started on the 26th of July, so people had a lot of time, the whole of August and the whole of September to ensure that they register. But I think only about 50-60% of them registered, and the majority left it to the last minute to register so that they can start using the service.
This time around, of course, it's a new initiative in the sense it's got law in place behind it, is made compulsory by government. So I think one of the reasons why people were sort of rushing towards the end, generally in Fiji you find that happens. If you talk to Vodafone or Digicel and various other organizations that actually have competitions, even when you have text messaging competitions, even if it's open for a month, generally people don't use that 1 month. they'll do it on the last day, on the last hour. We have a tendency of doing that in Fiji. So, it's only when it kind of 11th hour dawns upon people, that's when there's a rush towards it. And I think that's precisely what happened. There was nothing sort of, peculiar about it. I think that's the way we essentially have been operating. And that's why there was a rush.
And as the chief executive of the Consumer Council of Fiji, during the first week, what kind of complaints did you receive from consumers?
Well, in the first week, in fact, in the first few days, there were complaints from consumers, and it was related to the machine itself. Some of the machines were not working. They had no idea where the top-up can be done. The disposable cards were not available on the buses. And there were other issues related to overcharging. They felt that they were overcharged for that particular stage. In other cases, the drivers were very rude. They were rushing the passengers, and I think the key problem here was because the machine and the whole system was new to them. They were not able to use the machine properly. Some were scared to use it, just like any other human being. When we see something new, then we tend to think how to use it. So obviously they were taking more time. And it didn't go well with some of the drivers. And the other problem was that the drivers were not picking the passengers from the bus stop. They just said, oh, the bus is full and we can't take you. Unlike before, where they were packing the passengers like sardines. So a lot of them had to wait for very long hours to get the second bus.
That is definitely something I want to touch on shortly after this. Well, we'll go to a quick break and we'll be back. You're watching For the Record. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now, Pramila, you spoke on some of the complaints that were received after the first week of the e-ticketing system, after it was initiated. How has it progressed from there?
Now we are seeing lesser complaints, very few complaints coming in. And the complaints are different as compared to what we received initially. Complaints are more related to disposable cards not available on the buses. And in very interior places, they still face this issue of topping up. So these are the two major issues, as well as in an instant, in one case we've received, where the consumers complaining that they have difficulty topping up as well as getting a disposable card if the bus service starts early in the morning, like 6 o'clock, because at that time the agents don't open their shop. So they're not able to get the disposable card or get the top-up done. So that's still an issue to be fixed.
Rajnesh, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, in terms of top-ups, by the time we rolled out e-ticketing, we have about 1,263 agents now live servicing the customers. And on a continuous basis, we are increasing our agent presence as well, including the rural and rural areas. In terms of 24-hour service, we have majority of the service stations, including all the major service stations that are open on a 24-hour basis, are our top-up agents. And also these kava shops around the place, which are operating on a 24-hour basis, are our agents as well. Whilst I said that we are continuously increasing our agent presence, and we are also looking at a scheme where we are able to have mobile agents as well. Within the bus stations as well, where these agents go around and top up the customers who are trying to board a particular bus.
Cases like that.
For cases like that. So we are definitely looking into that, and we have continued to ensure that we increase our agent presence across the country.
We should come back to the initial, the introduction of the e-ticketing system, the rolling out rather. Why did you roll out the way you did? I mean, was there like consultations done? Did you take into fact the school children? Like, my question is, why didn't you have like a soft opening and then eventually move out into the entire country?
I think when the initial implementation was done with the bus operators in 2013, there was a lot of lessons learned on how we need to roll out in this particular phase. And I think everyone will be able to highlight the amount of consultation that we had before the implementation of this e-ticketing system. all the stakeholders, including the bus operators, LTA, the regulatory bodies, the government, everyone pitched in to ensure that the system that we put in is the right one and is structured in the right way to ensure that customers and passengers get the benefit of the system.
I think you had a soft opening. You had 2 months of soft opening.
Yeah.
From the end of July all the way up till October, you have nearly about a little over 2 months of soft opening. So that is the soft opening. I think the point there also is that, and we've said to Vodafone, we also said to the bus operators, and to address the issue what the CEO of Consumer Council has said, there are certain areas, of course, where you need to ensure that there are disposable cards available in the interior places. You're not going to have some roaming agent there. So the bus companies need to carry disposable cards, and the bus operators need to, and we've said to them they need to do that as a matter of course. More and more you'll find that a lot more people are now obviously registering on what would you call on the permanent cards, so people can top that up. And what has been said by Vodafone, with the mobile sort of top-up agents moving around. In fact, just a couple of days ago I was watching a video which is on YouTube, where in countries like Kenya and Rwanda, where they've also introduced that. And the one in Rwanda, what they've done is that before they used to have bus conductors that used to collect money. So obviously now with e-ticketing, those bus conductors no longer have a job because people pay directly into the machine. So what the company there did, not the bus company, but the actual service provider, equivalent of Vodafone, they went and actually trained these bus conductors, and now set up their own little businesses. So they have their own business where they do top-ups, and they go around with the machines, and they get a commission paid to them by the service provider in Kigali, where they've tried it, which is the capital city of Rwanda. So there are many sort of options that we can of course have, where you have roaming top-up agents, you have of course permanent top-up agents, and we of course need to ensure that people who are in the rural areas, in particular bus companies that run in those areas, should have the cards, the disposable cards that you should be able to buy. In the morning, just in case somebody is living in the interior of Nandari Batu and needs to catch a bus and does not have the top-up, forgot to do the top-up. So they should be able to buy the $3 card or $5 card on the bus, and that card should be made available. Alternatively, if they get on the bus, and the bus driver can provide them with the top-up card at the end of the journey.
You spoke about how you wanted to add something?
Yeah, in terms of top-up, we have seen the behavior of customers also changing. Initially, when we introduced the system, customers were recharging topping up for say $2, but now that the behavior has changed and the average top-up is around $10-15. So customers, what they are doing is they are now budgeting for the whole week or so. So they top up $10 and say, I don't need to worry about top-up for the next 1 week. They top up once and they are able to travel throughout the week.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and see, the other point I was discussing with the CEO earlier on is that when you have the cash system, assuming I have a $5 note, and that's for my bus fare, if I drop the $5 note, I've lost the $5, so I can't pay for my bus fare. Right. If I have, or I can't recover that $5 in any case. If I have my card and I lose the card and it's a permanent card, I can actually get my $5. As soon as I report it, they stop the payment, I get another card with my $5 on it. So you've actually not lost your $5. There's huge advantages. And also,
huge advantage.
From a regulatory perspective also, to the point that what the CEO was saying again, is that before, for example, on certain routes, people will tell you that in the morning or the school kids, etc., they're packed like sardines. So in this way, this information on how buses are running, how many passengers they're carrying, the bus companies can get real-time data, how many passengers are actually traveling on their bus, how many of them actually got on at the corner of Khalsa Road and Princess Road. They know exactly. LTA knows that. So they may say, hang on, we actually need to run more bus routes because there are too many people packed in. So we need to have another route starting at 11:30 or whatever it is. So it gives that ability to be able to do better planning. And so when sometimes bus operators complain, say, oh, not many people got on a bus. This way we'll be able to know exactly how many people actually got on the bus or how many people did not get on the bus.
See, with our experience, there's a lot of people come in the morning. Passengers will bring about $20 note, $10 notes, and drivers don't have much floats. So what actually happens, they'll give the money to the driver and say, when you get off, I'll take the money, and they forget. And once they forget, then there's a complaint comes to us. Then we ask them, have you got a ticket, or you got a bus number, how are we going to refund? See, this way, a lot of them were losing money. Now with e-ticketing, as AG has said, even if you lose the card, you ring to them and there is money safe. So there was a lot of advantage the public is getting. And again, of course, that buses got GPS too. So we can see through real time, if the bus is full, we can send another bus. So the people are not stuck on the road, especially on rural areas. Because rural areas is not a fixed kind of thing that people come every day. Sometimes maybe a busy day, sometimes maybe a lesser passengers. So it gives us a good time to plan ourselves, to look what is happening, how we can plan it, how can we send another bus that people are not stuck. So I think it's a very good system.
Definitely something we'll touch on more. We'll come back after a quick break, but right now, you're watching For the Record. Good evening and welcome back to For the Record. Now, Jeet, you had spoken about how, some of the improvements, especially when concerning money. One thing that I wanted to know was, how are the school kids finding it? What is the feedback you're getting from your drivers?
Well, I tell you one thing, it's a big advantage for school children. Like before, the school children, so if they were not traveling on a school bus, they were not protected. They were traveling on a normal bus, they used to pay a higher fare. Now it's open for them. They can travel in any bus and they pay half fare. And especially on, I'm running an express service between Nursery and Suba. Now, before they used to pay $1.95. Now they're paying 98 cents. You see? Because that was one fare bus. Now, because the ticket is programmed, they pay half fare. So that's a big advantage for school children now. And they can travel any time of the day, any time in the morning or any time in the afternoon, because there had always been a complaint from school children before that after there was a time limit, after 4:30 they used to go by bus and pay higher fare. Now if they have extra classes in school, they still can come 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock and pay still half fare. So there's a good advantage for the school children.
Can I just step in here and say something? There's a little bit of abuse also going on.
Yeah.
The feedback we've got is that some parents are actually, we've discovered some complaints about from bus operators, are using actually their children's card to travel. Now, the system is not going to work if people are going to be dishonest about it. There's a particular level of, I suppose, responsibility we've given. We've given a level of, there's a particular level of trust. So we ask the parents, please don't abuse it. The government is actually subsidizing bus companies in excess of about $13 to $14 million a year, so that children below a particular income level could travel at a subsidized rate, or some of them travel for free. So, let's not try and abuse the system. We've also discovered that there are some other forms of, school children now trying to use the cards when they're going around, going out on social purposes as opposed to school purposes. That's also something that we are trying to manage in the meantime. But I would appeal through your program to parents, please, those cards are actually for children. The taxpayers of Fiji are paying for it. The government has allocated these resources for it. Let's have it used by people who are supposed to use it, because then the system will work, and the bus operators are happy about it. The bus drivers know exactly there's no abuse taking place.
And these are the yellow cards that we're talking about, right?
Yes, we have two of the cards.
Blue card and yellow card.
Blue card and yellow card.
See, yellow card is for the students, those who are not subsidized by government, and for children, those who are not attending the school and under 12 years old.
And those who are subsidized by government are within their zoning
No.
of the schools?
No, it's not applicable to that.
It's not applicable to that.
Their children, they are given that
Yeah.
subsidy.
And they come from a low-income family, so they're given
Yeah.
it. There's no zone per se.
Right. So,
But
how-
talking about abuse,
yeah.
there is also abuse with the senior citizen cards.
Okay.
That is also surfacing up, where the senior citizen cards are being used by family members to get that concession.
And
Actually, the senior citizen card, they've got ID. They must produce the ID with the card. If they don't want to produce ID with the card, then I think the driver's got a right to say, okay, look, you must produce, or some form of
Yes.
restriction should be there. Otherwise, what the Consumer Council is saying is quite true. We have come across that somebody sits down and don't pass it to the window, and somebody else uses it.
And how about in cases, I'm still hearing of people just walking into the bus and dropping like a $2 And could you explain more on that? Like, how are the bus drivers trying to stop them from doing that?
Well, I haven't come across to that. I have got no knowledge that anybody is trying to do that, but they do come for a disposable card, and all the bus companies do get a disposable card now.
But-
Maybe they, from the starting point, there may be some bus companies didn't have a disposable card, but I think everybody's got a disposable card now.
But initially, when the e-ticketing system rolled out in the month of October, the first week,
Yeah.
we were receiving complaints where some bus drivers were still taking cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how's it now?
I think this is where the consumer responsibility comes in.
Comes in,
If
eh?
you want to make the system work, which will benefit them as well, so this is where they should not be actually just giving cash and not taking the disposable card. They must take the disposable card and use it, because we do not wish to see, abuse of the disposable cards as well.
We put in place some new regulations and actually came into effect yesterday,
Yeah.
where now it's also illegal for bus drivers to accept cash.
Okay.
There's a penalty for the bus drivers. There's also now a penalty for the bus companies vis-a-vis their road service license. So now their road service license, with the ability to have it renewed, or indeed for them to be, reassessed, whether they should continue to hold the road service license, will be based upon their willingness to ensure that the e-ticketing rules are complied with. So those regulations have also been put in place now to ensure that nobody abuses. Yes, absolutely correct. We had heard in the first week that some bus companies were being, still recalcitrant about it. Some bus drivers were being recalcitrant about it. One of the issues also that, as you know, that used to take place was a lot of the bus drivers, as the bus operators would tell you, used to, through the cash system, take a certain percentage out from the day's takings
Yeah.
and only give a certain percentage to the bus owners. So a lot of them used to sort of run the routes, fill people up like sardines, used to run extra routes also. The bus companies used to fight, as you know, through the LTA.
Yeah.
There are regulated times on which they should operate. But some bus companies were just running amok. Because the bus drivers want to run as many routes as possible, get as many people as possible, and the general rule was, as in other countries too, if they collect $300 for their route, they'll keep 100 for themselves and give $200 to the bus operator. It created a lot of chaos within the system, and kind of very laissez-faire approach. So in order to have a well-regulated system and accountability, that's what's happened. Of course, the new issue now is about the salaries for bus drivers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are quite happy to receive low salary, but they would take a certain percentage of a taking, which is like the unwritten rule, but nobody could actually account for it. So now what we've also said to the bus operators, that now that every single cent will be accounted for, we need to pay the bus drivers the correct salary. We've had complaints from certain bus drivers, some of them anonymous, some of them have come, revealing the names, where they've been working for companies where, for example, the FNPF has not been paid for 10 years. They've never received a pay slip. But they were quite happy to do that for a decade
Yeah.
because they took a cut.
They were still gaining.
They were gaining.
Yeah.
But now that they no longer can, now they're actually complaining about it. So the fault lies on both parties also. And what we're saying is that we need to be able to, resolve those issues through a regulated system. We've also had, for example, as you know, we've made the amendments to the law now that the age restriction for somebody to hold a PSV license has been
Yeah.
reduced from 21 to 18. So there's a lot of jobs also available. I'm sure the bus operators, Mr. Singh, can talk about that, how there's a need for good bus drivers.
Yeah. There is.
And there's a lot of employment opportunities there too.
Yeah, because we're running short of drivers at the moment. Don't know, and that's been for a long time. And of course, there's, like he's saying, there's a big demand for the bus drivers at the moment.
I definitely want to talk more about that. We'll go to a short break, and then we'll be back. You're watching For the Record. Good evening and welcome back to For the Record. Now, Ajit, we were speaking on good drivers. Could you elaborate more on that? Especially with the younger ones coming, being able to get a PSV license at the age of 18. Will you be open to the idea of hiring an 18-year-old drive one of your buses?
Well, I think 18 years is a provisional license at the moment. I'm not sure at the moment that 18 years whether they can get license or that's a provisional license and they have to wait for another 2 years. I'm not sure about that. But of course, what we were thinking from my company that we were willing to train the drivers,
Yeah.
those who don't have a license, because at the moment the condition was that to get a PSV license, you got to have a light good or something like that kind of license for 2 years before you can go for a private for PSV license. What I like to see is if somebody can drive a bus, he should go straight away to PSV license rather than having a private license or something like that.
It's been changed. The age requirement has been changed. And so the idea is to be able to expedite people to be able to ride, drive. I mean, if you see many bus companies, a lot of bus companies that already started off as family bus companies. I'm sure Mr. Singh started driving his first bus at the age of 15 or 16. So there are people, of course, who can do that. They still have to go through the various, driving classes and courses, etc. But they can get those driving licenses, and there's the potential, of course, for more people to be employed, a lot more professional way. I mean, we would like to see, I understand Vodafone has distributed T-shirts to bus drivers. I think three sets each, or they're in the process of doing that. It'd be nice to have bus companies, the bus drivers dressed up well, not somebody with a shirt button all the way halfway down the chest or whatever it is, to give a sense of professionalism. We need more and more people to catch buses, because overall, from a government's perspective, the more people catch buses, the less carbon footprint we'll have. So as we have said previously, that we now have, for example, you have 4-lane road all the way to Nasino, and of course very soon up to Nasori. But if you travel by car, it can take over an hour and a half to travel from Nasino to Suva at peak period. And once those roading is done, we can actually have then dedicated bus lanes, for example, between peak periods, as they do in cities like Sydney, etc. So you can say between 6:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. this left lane will be completely bus dedicated lane. So no other mode of transportation can go in that lane. So it makes it attractive for people to get on the bus. This is why, for example, we've now given the licenses for up to 15 years to bus companies. So they have that security. We've said that smaller bus companies that have a gross turnover less than $1.5 million, if they go and take out a bank loan, the interest rate they'll pay will be 5% or less. So all those incentives we've given them. Also, if they import buses, there'll be zero rate of duty. So we want the bus quality of the buses to improve. Not necessarily tarpaulin windows and all of that and rickety buses.
Yeah.
Once you improve the quality of the buses, you then can get more passengers going, and then it becomes more attractive. So instead of driving your car, as we know, there's a lot more people with cars now, they prefer to take the bus, get to Suva within 20 minutes, do their day's work, get home, then drive their car. So that's, it all fits in with the entire approach that we're taking towards the transportation sector, and e-ticketing obviously is a pivotal part of that.
It's definitely something I think most people would want to see. And I, for one, would love to sit in a seat that I could actually fit in. Yeah, so that's a good thing. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, and this is to go back mainly to the yellow cards. If a child was to lose a card, how many times were they to lose it until a parent would have to pay for that card? Just for clarification purposes.
For the yellow cards, it's a non-subsidized student card.
Yeah.
So the first card that we have given is free. First replacement is also free, and then after the first replacement, if the cards get lost, then the cost of the cards is $5.
$5.
Yes.
That's applied to all the cards.
This applies to all the cards. Yes.
I think I would like to raise the issue on the drivers. We are still receiving complaints in regards to drivers who are very rough to passengers. They are rude to passengers, and that needs to change. They play very loud music in the buses, and that needs to change. So we need professionalism. And I know previously with when e-ticketing was not there, the bus companies were focusing on revenue collection. Now that task is given away, so they'll have more time to now focus on improving the services and training the drivers. Driver training is very important, extremely important.
And who do people go to with these issues?
They've been going to LTA.
LTA is the right body to look at it, because we have to look at the safety of the passengers too. When you have loud music, I mean, driver's attention is on the music too. Don't forget that. What happens if something tire blows or something comes out? He won't be able to hear it. So and that's I support the Consumer Council, because a lot of people don't like it. I mean, voices, they got a boombox in the buses. So those kind of is too loud again. So music is, I don't know, I can't say that, but I think in olden days there was not supposed to be a radio allowed in the buses. in old regulations. Maybe I'm talking about 60s and things like that. No sounds loud. But in radio can be for the newspapers. But of course, music playing in the bus is, something that really got to be we got to consider about the safety of the public. And this is what actually happened when the music is there. If you look at the school children, their behavior changes in the bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
They start dancing, and they don't care for anything. Some of them would be hanging out of the windows, So those are dangerous things, I would say.
I think the idea again is that we need to increase the level of professionalism. Not everything can be regulated by LTA. I mean, one of the things that we also believe in and like to sort of advocate for is competition. So, of course, there are some bus companies that have exclusivity over particular routes, so there's not much competition. But there are other routes where, a number of bus companies, for example, Suva Nosori, Nandi Lotoka, Lotoka Mba, Nandi Singatoka, a lot of bus companies run. So, it should be a point where a person can say, look, I'm going to go with company X because the driver is courteous, the bus is clean, it's got a nice environment, they don't play loud music. So people have a range of choices too. So I think the responsibility also lies with the bus operators too. They need to also tell their drivers how to behave professionally. The point that I was trying to make earlier on, how we need to attract more people to use the buses to reduce their carbon footprint. These things will all lead to that. We also want our tourists to catch buses. I mean, I was a few days ago, I was at Nandi Airport, and one of the bus conductors who's still there or handles the passengers at the airport said, a lot of tourists now, we've got a nice Nandi Airport, nice bus bays. They actually want to catch the local buses when they get off. And he said, but there was no disposable cards offered by that bus company. So they said, can we, where can we get the disposable cards? I said, your bus company must have disposable cards. They're missing out on these passengers. And then we also rang up Vodafone and we asked them to have disposable cards available at the Vodafone outlet store at the arrival area.
Okay.
So, we should encourage these tourists to also take our buses. It leads to additional revenue for bus companies. It makes it a lot more attractive. And then, of course, it adds to the fact that we reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you for that. We'll go to a quick break, and then we'll be back. You're watching For the Record. Good evening, and welcome back to For the Record. Now, Ajit, what has it been like with passengers? Behavior like? I've heard stories about certain the passengers and their behavior towards the e-ticketing machines.
Well, with my experience, and I only can talk about my buses because people were used to e-ticketing system right from the beginning. I haven't come across any difficulties, but of course, there were complaints to the Fiji bus operators. Certain people were not happy because sometimes at times because drivers don't know how to use the machines, and they were having some problems. So where people get frustrated anyway. And another problem is that when people get in, when they tap the card, as soon as the second person comes, they tap it very quickly. So that's where the problem comes in when it says invalid card. So there's a confusion between driver. Sometimes he feels that card is not working or the card may be defective because he doesn't know. So that's a bit of frustration was there at that time at the beginning. And like I said, I'm driving buses in the morning. I do find that people come very fast and like to tap it on. They don't wait for the next person until, because the practice is that you must tell the driver, passenger must tell the driver where you're getting off. So that gives you a bit of time, then you can tap it on. The driver says, now you tap it on. And this is why we wanted the Vodafone to have a voice there to say, please tap on now and thank you. So that would give them a bit of space to say when to tap on. And now, if you leave it to the driver, every time driver will have to tell that they don't want to take that responsibility of saying, passenger, now tap on. See, that has become cumbersome for them.
So the drivers need to adjust. I mean, this is, again, it boils down to training. The bus companies, if they want it to work, they need to ensure the drivers are trained in some of these finer issues. And of course, we had, just talking about damage to machines, we were informed that excess of 40 machines, right?
40 machines.
When in that 2-month period, when Vodafone went around putting on machines on certain bus companies, when the machines were put on in the morning, when they came back, those machines were damaged. So obviously people went around and actually damaged them deliberately. Over 40 machines installed by Vodafone were actually damaged. They had to reinstall those machines. So, and I think a lot of it was probably to do with Seawell, who were resistant,
Yeah.
perhaps no longer getting that 1/3 cut because of e-ticketing. But I mean, these are the issues that we go through. I mean, you know, Australia, when they introduced e-ticketing, they had a lot of issues. Lots of countries, and we have to go through it. They are the growing pains. But now, of course, you know, a lot more people, as the CEO said, the number of complaints have reduced. There are certain areas, of course, we need to improve upon. For example, in particular, making sure that disposable cards are made available a lot more readily. In particular, those areas where they may not be necessarily registered on a permanent basis, or there's not that many people who can do top-up. But of course, Vodafone has a competition that's going on for those people who travel by e-ticketing. Maybe we can be elaborated upon that.
Yeah, we started the
But before we start on that, like, just to go back on what he had spoken about, the disposable cards, there is, just for clarification, a lot of people seem to think that when you get a disposable card and you've used up a certain amount and you have 30, 60 cents, that your money is gone. Would you like to elaborate more on that?
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, definitely. I think from day one we have been communicating that on a disposable card, for example, if there is a $2 on disposable card and you use up $1.40 and you have 60 cents left in the card, you can go to any Vodafone or authorized dealer outlet. You can get your 60 cents
Right
back.
back.
Yeah. So within the 30-day period of the expiry of the disposable card, you can go and get your 60 cents. Even if you have 10 cents or 20 cents in your card, you can get your refund on your disposable card.
There's a lot of missing. Sorry.
I also like to request bus operators to assess how many disposable cards they are selling on
Yeah.
a daily basis and which denomination, so that they are able to keep those disposable cards. Not that when a consumer walks in with a $2 and that's all they have in their pocket, and they're after $2 disposable card, and the driver says, sorry, but I don't have. So it's also about the income level in the area, particularly the farming community, remote rural areas, because these were some of the issues that came up when we were doing our consultation in regards to bus fare.
What we're trying to do is, I think most of the bus companies are following that. There are about, say, five, like $5, $2, $5, $10, $20 cards are given. So each driver probably in a short run will have 20 cards for a day. So you know that's quite a bit. When you have 60, 70 bus running, that's for one company. I think that's pretty good. You
Actually,
have all different.
I disagree with that, I'm sorry, because the problem here is if you just give 40 cards per day and there are so many runs, in a bus you have 40 passengers, right? And although we are encouraging e-card, but these are the early days, and this is where we need to assist the consumers, and we got to have the disposable card readily available. Because at the end of the day, consumers can walk in with their money and buy their disposable card, and later on when we have that mobile system of recharging at the bus stations or wherever, when that system kicks in, then obviously the demand for disposable card will dwindle.
See, another
Okay,
thing we got to
it's-
see here, we don't want our drivers to handle too much of money again. Because don't forget that before, there were a lot of, when we had cash system, drivers were robbed. Now, with this kind of things, we're just giving enough for them. If they need more, of course, if they come back and say, hey, look, I'm selling more tickets, definitely we're going to give them more with experience. So what is happening is rather than giving them more, we're trying to give them that much. If that's not enough, they can come back and say, look, I want more, we'll give them more. There's no problem.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. See?
But disposable cards again can be reconciled.
Yeah, but another
So
thing
that's
is
the
that,
good part of it, you know, it can be reconciled, unlike previous case.
yeah, but another thing, we don't like to people to get used to disposal card.
Totally agree with you, but
We
as I
will
have
still
said,
like to people have a permanent card.
yes,
Because once we started, we agreed with disposal card. Our thinking was that this is for people, emergency people, say
cases.
in case people have lost the card or they don't have the card, and the card is available for them, like tourists or people coming from outer island, for rural areas where people don't have access for them. But in a city area, you have a lot of access there. So I think, you know, giving too many cards in town and city areas would be a bit difficult for us.
I think the point that CEO is also making is the rural areas where we have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Is you know, where there is lack of availability of outlets for people to get that. But of course there needs to be some in the urban areas too. I think that the point that I was trying to make was that the idea of having the dual system in terms of disposable and of course the permanent cards was that there would be people who would require on a short-term basis, and as Mr. Singh highlighted, there would be, say, somebody coming from Kandavu on a holiday, you know, in Suva, traveling, living in, you know, say Tamavua, coming to town every day, visiting relatives. So they can buy a disposable card because they're not going to be here for, you know, more than 2 weeks. That's what it's to cater for. I think the other point also is that with the competition that they're having, also that encourages people to again, you know, use those permanent cards. I would encourage through your medium for him to highlight the competition.
On the competition, I think we started around mid-October, where every week we give 50 users $50 top up on their permanent e-ticketing cards.
Yeah.
So 50 users will win $50 top up every week for 8 weeks till the 16th of December, where one lucky winner will get away with a brand new Nissan Navara.
So they will need to
So
catch the bus.
they don't need to travel on a bus after that. So it's a
That's
major
convenient.
competition that we are running to ensure that customers continue to use the e-ticketing platform.
Some may say it's a bit paradoxical, but the fact of the matter is that hopefully when they win the car, they use it in after hours. During the day, you can use the bus to go
Use
to
the
work.
bus.
Yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to highlight on the permanent card, there is a lot of benefits that are attached to the permanent cards as well in terms of registration, because the permanent card is registered to a particular customer. So for example, if you lose the card and you got money in that card, we can block that card and we can give you a replacement card and transfer all the money
back
to
inside.
so that's the advantage that you have with the permanent card, and you won't be able to have that with the disposable card because that is not registered under you, and we won't be able to identify that it is your card.
Well, I just want to thank you all for
See-
coming here tonight.
Can I say something? I mean, this is a huge benefit for the for the traveling public. You
Yeah.
know, they never have any chance of winning a car and paying a bus fare.
Thank you for that, Ajit. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and bringing some much needed clarification on the e-ticketing system. That was For the Record for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. And from the team and I, good night.